Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Our guest today was raised up with history surrounding her. Her father, Emerson Thompson, was the first county judge in the 70s and the first in so many arenas in the fifth and ninth judicial circuits here. Her mom, Geraldine Thompson, is our state senator, and she is none other than Elizabeth Thompson. She's a board member for PAST, which is the Association to Preserve African American Society, History, and Tradition. She's going to explain all of that since she's talking history today and more. You can stream with us on Facebook or now join us on Spotify. How are you, Liz? Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. My pleasure to be here.
I'm so happy that what we have in our own backyard through the Wells Built Museum. And I don't even want to hold it any further. I got to tell you one quick story. When
Okay.
I first came to Star 94.5, I put together something in a package called Star Cares. And every Black History Month, we would take a busload of people, different places throughout Florida, so much history throughout our state. And then right here in Orlando, your mom was the very first person to act as our docent. She got on the bus with us. She took us and pointed out all of the different streets here, more than any other city in the United States, named after Black Americans. And then we wound up at the Wells Built. So I was in love with your mom forever, 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 our state senator. So how does that feel being raised up around so much history?
You probably, it doesn't feel different for me because that's the household I grew up in.
That's just mom
Um,
and dad.
that's just mom and dad. I think the biggest difference, though, was the infusion of historical education that happened in the house. It
Mhm.
was always a priority to make sure that we were educated about African American history, about local history, and it was just natural, whether at the dinner table on Saturday nights or what have you. It was part of growing up in that household. And now that I'm older, I understand that that had to be a very intentional decision. It wasn't something that just naturally happened. And so, if anything, I would say that's one of the things that that resonates the most with me.
Wow. And this year, 2024, is a leap year. So we're actually getting one more day
That's right.
today, the 29th, uh
Mm.
to be able to just really just shine the light on our Black history right here in Orlando. And I'm not even going to say Central Florida. I'm going to focus right here down in the Paramore area on South Street is one of the most recognized areas, and it's regentrified. You think of the UCF and Valencia downtown campus, but across the street, diagonally across the street from that, is something called the Wells Built Museum. And that's something that Senator Thompson put into play many, many, many years ago. So I would like for you, Elizabeth, to just share the backstory of the Wells Built, if you will.
Sure. The building that the Wells Built Museum now
Mhm.
is in was previously or originally the Wells Built Hotel, and it was a hotel that was founded and built and financed by Dr. William Monroe Wells. And this is
Mhm.
in the 1920s. So, definitely times of racial segregation as law. I tell people all the time, you have to remember that this was the law, not just
Mhm.
that Black people wanted to live in their own neighborhood. No, it was the law that you
Yes.
had to. And so the Wells Built Hotel opened in the late 1920s as the first, and for a very long time, the only African American hotel or hotel that would lodge African Americans.
Mhm.
And that was over, again, late 1920s. So we're over 95 years ago.
Mhm.
And we're so fortunate that the building is still standing. And in fact, at one point was on a list for to be demolished,
Mhm.
but was saved
I
and
don't know.
preserved.
I don't know how or when your mom began researching, but to be able to gather up the funds to save that building was monumental. There is a registry book that is in a case now that
Yes.
you can see all of the celebrities, Ray Charles, all Elvis, all of the Black historical factors for us, musicians who came to town, and this was their only place that they could stay. The Wells Built was listed in the Green Book, I'm sure.
It was.
Mhm. And the artifacts that exist today inside the Wells Built Hotel, you have just got to go and see, and everything is in its original state.
Hmm.
How did she manage to do that?
It was a labor of love. I always tease, I am the youngest of three children. So I say that I am the youngest of three children, but that doesn't include the Wells bill because that is certainly one of her babies.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. The tours that you all do, and Catrice needs to be commended for that because she's now the docent there, and the docent is the 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 tour guide.
Museum educator. Yeah, you'll go
Museum
in
educator, I like.
and yes, and Catrice will be there and to greet you. And she also is just a fount of knowledge.
Mhm. And her mother before that, that was her role there too.
Yes. Yes.
So you can't help but be around Senator Thompson and Judge Thompson and not just be absorbed by all that they represent. I was just at a luncheon this past Friday where your dad was recognized
Yes.
as a legend in our community, and the stories that he and the host traded. I mean, I really got a chance to see Judge Emerson in a totally different way. And
Yeah.
so I said, "Oh, wow, he does smile." But as a judge,
Yeah.
he has to look so stern.
I would always tell people, I was like, my dad's funny. But I don't think everybody believes that or probably doesn't get to see that side.
you know, and that's okay. That is okay. And also, I think that when we go back to the Wells built, we have to say that Dr. Wells having a mindset to do something like that was amazing as well. Do you know much about Dr. Wells?
I do know, the research that has come about over time. Of course, I've had to study it. At one point, I was the executive director of the museum, so I've had to study that. But I think part of the mindset is that community mentality. And if I'm offering an opinion, I think it's something that we can strengthen even today, that understanding that by doing something in that community, it would benefit those in the community. What's good for me is consequently going to be good for you. And I think he was very, very community minded. And the endeavors, the Wellsbud Hotel, as well as the South Street Casino, as well as the medical practice, the endeavors that he undertook were really to advance African American culture at that time. And where he would see a need in the community, he would work to fill that need.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. That was in the 1920s. We were doing for self and raising ourselves up. Now, some would say that, okay, we're in 2024 and all of these things are being taken back from us. What would you say he might think right now if he had to be a part of what's going on with our history here in the state of Florida?
So I will say I don't speak for people living
No.
or passed away,
Mhm,
but
mhm,
I think there is that mindset of working together, the collaborative, the partnership, the leveraging one another's strengths. And I think that would be the message that we can still have today is the collaboration. Sometimes I think some people do things for self
yeah.
aggrandizement,
Mhm,
but really we have to work together. There has to be some sense of connection and
mhm,
understanding that we would be working towards a common goal.
mhm. How do you think our community responds to the Wells Built Hotel? And then also give us that address for the Wells Built, because this is real. This is
Absolutely.
right downtown, you guys.
It really is. 511 West South Street. That's in Orlando. It's in Paramore. of
Mhm.
Orlando, 511 West South Street. And so I think whenever I receive guests, people are amazed,
Mhm.
people are awed, and they're appreciative. I think one of the things about legacy, right? We want to know that the work we're doing will live on and will extend even after our earthly years have come to pass. We want to believe that we are making an impact that will last and will positively affect those that come behind us, however you define that. And I think when you walk into this near 100-year-old building, this physical edifice,
Mm.
you
Mm.
have to negotiate all of those thoughts. You have to reconcile why a building like this was even necessary. You have to look through and see the people, those lesser known names that impacted our local history that we
Mhm.
don't know enough about.
We often hear about, well, Dr. Wells would be one, but name some of the other outstanding folks that have representation inside the Wells Built Museum today.
Sure, there's information about Dr. J.B. Callahan,
Mhm.
Jeremiah B. Callahan, who was the first African American doctor in Orlando. There's information about July Perry, who was an African American gentleman who attempted to vote in Ocoee. And
Mhm.
so then, consequently, there's information about the Ocoee massacre. There's information about Thurgood Marshall, who actually stayed at the Wells Built Hotel at the time when he came as a lawyer with the NAACP to
Mhm.
defend four gentlemen in Lake County, the
Mhm.
Groveland Four. There's information about the local lawyer that Thurgood Marshall worked with, Paul C. Perkins Sr. So
Mhm.
there's so much information about names and people who had direct impact
Mhm.
on Orlando and Central Florida. A lot of elected officials, a lot of notable firsts, whether it be first Black police officer or just any number of people, educators,
Mhm.
people whose names we need to be able to know and sing, because I always say that history is filled with lessons that hopefully we don't have to learn ourselves,
Yeah.
but we can only do that if we know.
Mhm.
We have to know our history.
I had an opportunity recently to interview Dr. Clara Walters, who has a new book out. It's a leadership book. And one of the things that I'm not sure that many folks here are aware of is that back in the 70s, 80s, she was the first Black female to ever become principal for Jones High School. And when she said that, she said, I didn't want to go. And I don't think we knew that. And so her emotion got tied in because she said, I think they thought that sending a woman there was so it could fail, so that the school could be shut down. And when she told me some of the things that she initiated there, for instance, did you know that the school was once, you entered it, I think it's on Cypress Street. So one of
Okay.
the first things that she did was she turned the entrance around to be on Rio Grande. So they had a new address. Think about that. Then she put up walls and then she made rules. And we don't even realize that she was the very first. And when she went in there, she made changes that stayed and they still exist in that school today. So Dr. Clara Walters is someone that is a living historian right now, today, and just had the opportunity to speak with her. So when I say that, your mom, your dad, they knew, and they're not even from here. That's the
Right.
amazing thing. That's
Right.
the amazing thing. When they planted themselves. Now, is your dad, is he a Florida boy? Because I know your
Yes.
mom is Louisiana, right?
Yes. Dad is a native Floridian.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But not necessarily from
No,
Orlando.
not Orlando.
Mhm. So to come to a new city and just ingrain yourself in that city and take on and really make a difference They have got to feel really good about that. How do they ever express that?
I think it's I don't know that they, of course, they're proud of what they've done and their accomplishments. But I think, again, it was that intentional decision. If we go somewhere that we are going to make our home, then we're going to work for where we are. We're going to try to advance things for ourselves, for our family, but things for those who come after. Both of my parents are very big in mentorship and guidance and all of those things. And so they definitely want to, I suppose, pay it forward in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're going to live somewhere,
Mhm.
then you better be working for where you are.
Mhm. One of the things I said in that same event that your dad was recognized at, I didn't get an award, but I was part of the fireside chat with myself, Isu Ma'at from the Orlando Magic, and Paul Sneed with 100 Black Men. And one of the things that I said is that in every city I've ever worked and opened a microphone at, there is still a piece of me there because I felt that my community work was just a simple rent that I needed to pay for the time that I spent there. So I tried to do the same thing here in Orlando, which is why it was so important for me to come in as community and news affairs director, as opposed to, I don't want to say just being a jock, because that's a big job right there.
Yes.
But along with the production of Tom Joyner's show, that was my other role. So I got a chance to really get out and let this station, who is now number one in Central Florida, be known for that's what Black people expect from radio stations. We are
Absolutely.
supposed to be the mecca of information. So I would reach out to people like your mom for moments like this, just to get some more information. She is a wealth of
Yes.
knowledge,
Yes.
just a wealth of knowledge. So now I want to ask you, do you ever plan to run for politics? Do you
Oh
ever think
no.
about that?
Let
Yes.
me know. I don't have to think about it at all. Let me go ahead on and say it right now. No. No. I think politics really and truly is a calling,
True.
100%. And you have to be
True.
called in order to really do it effectively. For me, I certainly want to be impactful, but I don't need to be elected. So I think I'm okay, not an elected official.
Mhm. And we don't have to talk about what you do, but you certainly make a difference in the role that you play right there in the community. What changes have you seen in the Paramore area and surrounding?
Oh, there's so many changes.
Mhm.
There's new businesses. You mentioned the UCF and Valencia joint campus. There's, of course, over time, right? There's the soccer stadium and now the newly named Kia Center.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of changes that have happened. Particularly, I know that there is now the Orange County Public Schools Academic Center for Excellence, which is a K through 8
Mhm.
school, whereas previously in the community, children were being bused
Yeah.
to at least what 8 different elementary and middle schools, and so much of community centers around school.
Mhm.
And so, you had next door neighbors that were going to different schools.
Yeah.
You can't walk over and talk about the homework
Mhm.
or call your neighbor and say, hey, can you pick up my child when you pick up your child? Because they're at
Right.
all these scattered different places.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of changes that are happening, a lot of development that is taking place. And I think it is incumbent upon us to see how, if there is money flowing into the area, if there are resources flowing into the area, if there are opportunities flowing into the area, how can we, the community, our community, make sure that we're a part of those
Mhm.
and leveraging and making the most use of what's coming?
The one thing that I would still like to see in that area, and I, for the life of me, cannot understand why there's not been a grocery store there. That is still a food desert,
Yes,
and I have the biggest problem with that. There are so many stores who could come into that neighborhood
I agree.
and change the whole trajectory of health for
Hmm.
the Paramore area. That is the one thing that I would like to see there. What are some other things? I know that there are a ton of churches there.
Hmm.
Hmm. But that is the one thing that I think that we're still missing in
I
that
think
area.
it's certainly an opportunity. Fresh food, fresh produce, things that are not boxed or
Mhm.
processed or frozen or what have you, they can go. And I think that's a huge opportunity. There were grocery stores in the area, a while ago that have since left and gone to the outskirts and things of that nature. But you're right, it's a food desert, and it is a huge, huge opportunity. I know there are some community gardens that are now
Mhm.
operating where you could, there are community members who are growing food in the area, but nothing replaces a grocery store. So I
Absolutely.
certainly think that, there's opportunity and there's space. I think there for any grocer that would want to come in,
Sure.
there would be a space for it. So I think that's on the grocery stores. I don't know how they make the decisions on where they go, but I'm with you. I would
Mhm.
love to see that
Mhm.
here in Paramore.
It would certainly cut down on obesity. It would certainly cut down on cardiovascular issues that crop up in Black neighborhoods, but especially, I know that they've done studies before in the health of
Mhm.
residents there. And I'm sure that, that food factor is a huge, huge issue. I do know that Ebony Nutrition has their fresh market bus that will come through. But I mean, what about produce? Where do you get your meats from? Where do you
Yes.
get so I just think it's necessary for us to think in terms of that. If you are just coming on board, we are speaking with the lovely Elizabeth Grace. Elizabeth Thompson is the daughter of historians. Her father was the first Supreme Court judge here in Orlando back in what was it, the 70s or 80s? I
It
think it
was
was
the 70s. It was the
70s.
70s. Hmm.
Mhm. And then from that time until he retired, he held several first judgeship positions within the fifth and the ninth judicial circuits. And I just think that that needs to be applauded. So I was so glad to see Mr. Thompson get his flowers. And her mom is an amazing educator and historian, as well as a politician. And she is always fighting for the betterment of our communities in her state senatorship right now. What else is she going to do? What else does she want to do? What else can we support her to do?
She is a fervent fighter for the community. So I know she will run again or is running again for Senate District 15, I
Okay.
believe it is. I have to make sure, but
Mhm.
she's gonna get on me about that one.
I
But
know.
I know that she wants to be sure that policy is working in our favor.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
in order to do that, you have to send people up there who will represent you at the table and have a voice and sometimes say the uncomfortable things and fight the unpopular positions. And that is my mother through and through. So I know she would like to go back to Tallahassee next term.
Mhm.
And so I think that's what's on her horizon.
Mhm. We've got to make that happen. And I tell people, it is Gen Z that is going to save this election. I really believe that. I want to let you know right now, April 11th, I have decided I wanted to do a panel at the radio station, and I want to really highlight a paper that we've had a discussion on One Take Live with before. It was done by UCF professor Dr. Amanda Wilkerson, and she had some project members from across the country work with her on this. And it is the other Black voter, and that is talking to Gen Z. So I really want to focus on that paper and get some of
Mhm.
those Gen Zers in there. So I've got some UCF interns from that work with me
Oh,
on it to
fantastic.
help me do it. I think it's really important. We've got Equal Ground that's going to be a
Yes.
part of it. Um, Representative Bracy will not be in town, but Rashawn, her aide, who is a Gen Z person, will be there in her stead. So I think it's really important that we get them engaged. And
Yes.
I don't know. Because if we don't come November 6th, we're gonna be very sorry.
Absolutely. I happen to know Dr. Wilkerson, and she's doing great things.
Yes.
And to your point, is really trying to speak to that generation who, sometimes have felt disenchanted, sometimes have felt a little bit discouraged.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to understand the importance of the vote.
Yeah.
Your vote is your voice. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So I commend all of also you mentioned Jasmine Burney Clark. So everybody doing the good work
Yeah.
to reach the new voter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I was asked to get someone to make the event sexy. I said, well, voting is not considered not sexy, but they're
Right.
trying to say get somebody that will draw the audience there. So if anybody can think of an artist that's in our midst that would really be a showstopper, and I'm not asking them to perform, just want them to be in the house. So that's what we're looking forward to come April 11th, and I'm going to do it. Come hell or high water, I want to say that. I gotta say that. I am
Absolutely.
like your mom when it comes to getting something done. So Elizabeth Thompson, a board member
I'm
for the
gonna say Elizabeth Grace. I'd have
Elizabeth
to.
Grace. Elizabeth Grace.
I was married now.
That's, you know what? And you're so right. You're so right. Elizabeth Grace, I will say that. And you know what? For some reason, when I saw that up, I'm saying, is that her middle name? But then you're right. Your husband's last name is Grace. She
Yes.
has two beautiful twins, a set of
Yes.
twins. Who'd have
Yes.
thunk that, Elizabeth?
I wouldn't have. It was a surprise, but a blessing.
Yes, yes, yes. Once again, the Association to Preserve African American, not only society, but our history and tradition. That is what they do with the Wells Built Museum of African American History and Culture. It's right there on your screen. You can find out more information about this wonderful hidden treasure, I want to say, right
Yeah.
there in our midst by going to wellsbuilt.org. If you had to give us one last push for the museum, what would you say, Elizabeth Grace?
I would say that the museum is really the repository for African American history here in Central Florida. We have things that you won't find anywhere else,
Yeah.
but that you need to know. So I encourage everyone to come visit. If you're in town, if you're visiting from out of town,
Mhm.
everyone come visit. The museum is open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I just encourage everyone to come and walk into the doors and be surrounded by history.
You will go through the doors and you won't even remember where you are. That's how much history will surround you right there. Pictures and artifacts. You've gotta just come out and learn more about our history, and especially since we got one extra day this month. All right.
That's right.
But Black History is 365, y'all. And don't you ever forget that. Elizabeth Grace, past member, I thank you so much for being on One Take Live. And I just want to let you know you got an open door. Come back whenever you want to.
Absolutely. And thank you for making space and doing all that you do.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I just want to say thank you so much to you all for joining us on Facebook. Please subscribe right there. And don't forget, we're now on Spotify with One Take Live. I'm Monica May. Thank you so much.